Hello, South Africa, and welcome back to Coronacast, your twice-weekly information program, keeping you up to date with the latest information around the progress of the coronavirus, as well as the measures being put in place to fight against it. Well, here we are, day 78 of South Africa's extended lockdown, day 12 of level 3 of the lockdown, and we start on a somber note because whilst we acknowledge those who've passed away from coronavirus in South Africa, and our thoughts and prayers are with them and their families, our thoughts and prayers must also be with those community members, particularly those who've been victims of gender-based violence. And sadly, we've seen a number of cases during the course of this week where this ugly scourge in South Africa has raised its head again. We've got to take a hard line against gender-based violence, and we've got to ensure that strict and strong action is taken against them. Instead of going around enforcing petty regulations, I think the time of the SAPS and the focus of the police minister should rather be on addressing this scourge and bringing to book those who are responsible for these heinous acts against women and children in South Africa. But sadly, that's not been the only travesty of the course of this week. We've seen an uptick in the number of farm attacks as well, with some really brutal scenes being shared with South Africans of farmers and rural communities being preyed upon by violent, depraved criminals who have committed some really atrocious acts. Now more than ever before, our rural communities, particularly those who are responsible for food production, are so essential to us. So many of our South African households, 51% of them, are now food insecure. It's absolutely essential that we keep the food chain working, we keep the agricultural supply side working if we're going to get through this particular scourge and get through this particular pandemic. In relation to this, we've now formed two specialized groups within our caucus. One headed up by our spokesperson of Women in the Presidency, Nazli Sharif, who will be looking and exploring with fellow members of Parliament as well as DA members around the country some immediate steps that can be put in place to combat gender-based violence in South Africa. And then our safety and security team, headed up by Andrew Whitfield, Okita Blanche, Kobus Marais, as well as Mr. Shalembe from KwaZulu-Natal, are going to be focusing on safety and rural safety and how we can put in place measures to stop this scourge of farm attacks and farm murders. But we now move to some good news, and many of you will know that this morning we were in the Western Cape High Court dealing with the whole issue around the personal care industry, and that's the focus of today's program. We're going to be talking all things beauty and hair today. A lot of you have been writing in over the course of the last few weeks to Coronacast. A lot of very concerned people in the personal care industry. Bear in mind, these are small businesses, don't have the resilience to go through long periods without earning an income. And yet, as we sit here in day 78, many of them have not been able to return to work because there are no protocols in place in terms of level 3 for them to operate. We believe that this is an unreasonable inhibition of ability of a citizen to earn a living and to conduct economic activity. And it's for that reason that we've taken these regulations head on in court. And to give a bit of report back about that, I'm joined in studio by Helen Zille, but we'll be getting to her just now. I'm also joined today by Brian Oosthuizen from Blokes Hairdressers in Cape Town. He owns a very successful chain of hairdressing salons, and we're going to be talking a bit about the impact on the hair industry. And then I'm joined by Sue Kelly Shoshana Manafelt from Bedazzled Beauty Salon in Kenilworth in Cape Town. She's a salon owner, a beauty salon owner, and she's going to be also sharing her experiences about what lockdown has meant for them and their business, as well as those people who are reliant on her business to earn a living. So please do stay tuned. It's going to be an action-filled episode today with one or two surprise twists, so do stay tuned. Without further ado, I'm going to turn to Helen. Helen, where are we sitting today? Today we went to the Western Cape High Court and we see that the constitutional delinquent Nkosi Dlamini Zuma had not filed papers. Where do we sit with this particular case?
Well, no surprises there. The Disaster Management Act gives huge power to Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, and she can be entirely unaccountable, and she was again today. She did not file any replying affidavit in the hearing in the Cape High Court. She just gave notice of her intention to oppose, but she failed to submit any papers opposing our application. Now,
but Helen, let's just stop there for a second. I mean, surely, in a time like this, when you've been given so much responsibility that you can't even get papers filed, and bear in mind, these are people who've got state attorneys and armfuls of lawyers that are working for them, and you can't get something simple as filing papers right, particularly on something that affects the lives and livelihoods of so many South Africans.
Well, we've seen Minister Dlamini-Zuma refuse to answer questions in Parliament. We've seen her just thumb her nose at everyone, and you know why? Because the Disaster Management Act gives her the power to do that. That is why our umbrella case in this whole debacle, actually, our umbrella case is the one to get the provisions that enable Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma to thumb her nose at even the courts of law in South Africa declared unconstitutional. That is the root problem here. But anyway, she was true to form. She did nothing to reply to our papers today, and the judge ordered a postponement. Now, that wasn't ideally what we would have liked. The case will definitely come forward until on the 22nd of June. That's not this Monday, but the next Monday. But in the interim, there's a very important development, which is the Cabinet meeting next Wednesday on the 17th of June. Now, we've made it very clear to Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma and the Cabinet that unless they lift the prohibitions on the personal care industry after the Cabinet meeting on Wednesday the 17th, we're going at them with two smoking barrels, because really it is nonsensical. It makes absolutely no rational sense. And if you simply read the prohibition, you can't believe that it could ever have passed muster to be even put in a regulation.
Well, there's so many of these petty regulations that are falling like skittles. I think, see today, Ibrahim Patel's walking away from the ban on clothing and all those sorts of things, as well as various other things. I think that government is starting to realise they've dug themselves into a terrible hole with these petty authoritarian regulations. And the golden rule in politics is when you're in a hole, stop digging. And all they've seemed to have done in the last few weeks is dig even deeper.
Well, you see, the big problem is they get seen by one particular special interest group that has close contacts or political contacts, for example, like the religious sector, and they say, fine, you go ahead with 50 people. If it's a religious ceremony, that's fine. Well, of course, then everybody else opens up to everything. As long as they say a couple of prayers, it covers it under the regulations. I mean, that shows you how absurd this is. Now, I just want to, for 1 minute, take you through the issue that we're challenging, because then you can hear how authoritarian and unaccountable this whole situation is. The government issued a gazette to explain which actions and professions are prohibited under Stage 3 lockdown. And there's a table in it called Table 2, and Item 7 of Table 2 prohibits the personal care sector. Now listen to this to see how unlawful and unconstitutional it is. The prohibition says that prohibited are personal care services, including hairdressing, beauty treatments, makeup and nail salons, and piercing and tattoo parlors, except those categories of services identified in directions by the relevant Cabinet Minister in consultation with the Cabinet Minister responsible for health as safe to resume under specified conditions. Now, they've never said which relevant Cabinet Minister is responsible, and they've never said which categories of services, and they've never said which particular precautions are necessary. So they issue a prohibition, bringing an entire industry that employs hundreds of thousands of people to a standstill with this kind of prohibition. I mean, it's clearly unlawful and it's clearly unconstitutional.
Yeah. Well, of course, but isn't this what's been happening from the beginning, is being able to pick winners and losers? And isn't that what it's a central planner's dream, essentially, that you can decide who can operate and who can't operate? In this case, it makes no sense. And we've seen that the personal care industry have opened in many of the other countries in the world, obviously following protocols. And I think importantly, no one is saying, let's just open up and go back to normal. But where an industry can demonstrate that it can open, and by practicing the protocols and open safely, the industry should be able to set in place what those protocols are and then determine whether it's safe to open or not.
100%, 100%, John. And it's been our position from the get-go, after the initial lockdown, that the position should be, these are the protocols, sanitizing, distancing, masking, any industry that can meet those protocols and demonstrate it, and it is mutual checking up, right?
Yeah.
But this should be a very salient lesson to South Africa. There are lots of quite decent people out there who run around believing that socialism and central planning is the answer. Believe me, this is what they'll get. Completely irrational regulations applied by unaccountable and incapable central planners who will turn this economy into a wasteland. And if this particular period doesn't demonstrate that, then we are very slow learners in South Africa.
We had Russell Lamberti on the show here last week, sitting exactly where you are, and he made two very important points. I mean, the first of all, he said that what we've seen in the 9 weeks is essentially a trailer or a preview of socialism.
Yeah,
He said, if you want to see what socialism looked like, the last 9 weeks have been a trailer for it.
Exactly.
The second point he made, which speaks to the gouging of the economy that's happening through these silly regulations. He's talking about a 2% contraction, a 10% contraction in GDP. And, we put it in scale and had a discussion about it. And he said, I said to him, well, tell us what that actually looks like.
Yeah.
And, what terrified me is he said that, well, the global financial crash accounted for 2% loss and contraction in GDP. Can you imagine what the scale of this contraction is going to be? And here we are, hobbling industries that should be allowed to open and destroying people's lives and livelihoods.
Well, the bottom line is that many, many people tragically die of infectious diseases every year. A lot of people are dying from corona, but far fewer, actually, than the number of people who die from infectious diseases every year. And that's a tragedy. Every life lost to an infectious disease is one too many. But we cannot close down an entire economy. We have to find ways of facing this thing, protecting ourselves. We know a lot more about it, and we need to get on with protecting lives and livelihoods.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the essence of it. So, Helen, where to now for the case, and what is the timeline? Do you want to just take, because I know there's lots of people in the personal care industry are very interested in what this means.
Well, we have a firm court date by which Minister Dlamini Zuma has to respond. But in between now and then, we have the 17th of June, which is the cabinet minister meeting. And we've said we want to see a clear indication that this particular regulation that I read, Table 2, Item 7, is withdrawn, and that the personal care industry is subject to exactly the same protocols as any industry that is allowed to open under Stage 3.
Okay, so we'll be able to keep people up to date on Coronacast about the progress, and
we definitely will
give
be
people
able
some
to.
Guidance next Tuesday.
And Dlamini Zuma knows she's under pressure because she knows that it cannot pass constitutional muster.
Yeah.
It absolutely cannot. The reason the case failed in the past was that they directed it at the wrong minister. And that was a technical mistake. So that was a sad mistake.
That wasn't our mistake.
It was not our mistake. Definitely not our mistake. It was another case that was taken. We've taken it to the correct minister, to the correct source of law. And her lawyers must be telling her, you're going to lose this case hands down. And so watch on Wednesday. I think we might see something happen.
Yeah, I think that we're going to see on Wednesday, I think a lot of things start to move and change, because I think governments realised that they're busy killing an economy.
Well, they've also had the pressure from us, non-stop.
Well, of course. I mean, that's the whole thing. And that's the duty of an opposition. And, that's something that frustrates me about, so many of these people who say, oh, well, you should sit in a corner and not say anything. Government knows best. Let them get on with this. Well, I think we've been able to demonstrate this, that government doesn't actually always know the best. And I think it's our job as an opposition party to exercise that pressure when government is doing the wrong thing to try and get them back on course. That's what an opposition party should do.
We did exactly the correct thing from the beginning. We supported the 3-week lockdown because this was an unknown disease and we had to come to grips with it, and we had to prepare the health system. Once we'd done that, and once we'd learnt what we had to learn, it was critically important to reopen the economy, and everything pointed to that. And in the meantime, what South Africans have to learn is what so much power in the hands of so few hands of people who really don't have democracy, accountability, or anything like that on their radar is a disaster for them very personally. And this should teach them.
And perhaps the greatest tragedy, and that's the data that's starting to emerge now, that this hard lockdown, one of the longest and hardest in the world, has actually not had the effect that it should have had. And the time has essentially come at great cost. It's been wasted, and we haven't flattened the curve, and that it's come at a big price for many South Africans.
It's come at an enormous price. We have slightly flattened the curve, but the bottom line is, with a pandemic, it goes its way through the population. You want to have fewer people initially contracting it so that you can prepare the health system, no question about that. And you want people to take care. But once you've done that, and we know now that it's elderly people and people with comorbidities that are in trouble.
Yeah.
People who have high blood pressure and diabetes must not go outside, literally. I mean, they really have to look after themselves, and the state must look after those who can't look after themselves. That's where we should be focusing our attention. The rest of us must get on and take personal responsibility, not allow Minister Dlamini Zuma to pass prohibitions like this, which are nonsensical, unlawful and unconstitutional.
Yeah. Got a question that's coming here from Amy Roll-Zwart. She says, just say the Minister does not again respond on the 22nd. What happens then? I presume we'll get a default judgment.
We'll get a default judgment, absolutely. We'll get a default
judgment. So there's
judgment.
no room to hide.
We wanted one today, but of course the judge has to give her another chance.
Yeah, well, no room to hide, and we're going to keep up the pressure.
No
But I
place
think
to hide.
let's just talk about the impact of this on, and to do that, I'm going to cross now to Sue Kelly, Shoshana Monefeld, Sue Kelly, welcome to Coronacast. It's great to have you on here, certainly adding a touch of glamour to the show, and thank you for making time to be with us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Bedazzle, how you started it, and what are the services that you guys offer?
Okay, hi everybody. Thanks for inviting me. Before I get to Bedazzle, I'd just like to go back to your point of farm killings. I was actually thinking about it last night, to be honest. And if you look at the statistics, we literally have a group of serial killers that's killing the highest amount of people that a serial killer has ever killed, happening live in South Africa, and nothing has been done about it. I mean, it's a scary statistic. I mean, I watched some documentary shows about killers and all these, and it's happening for more than a decade, and nothing has been done. I think we could literally be, I don't want to say voted because it's a terrible thing, but the world needs to bring awareness to what is happening to us here in South Africa, especially with the farmers that are being killed.
Yeah.
And then getting back to me, Bedazzle. I started my company roughly 17 or 18 years ago. I've been working in the industry since 12 years old. I opened my store, I think I was about 20 or 21. And slowly I had to build up and add services and add things. Obviously, I had to do a lot of courses to teach myself how to run a business and all the legalities of it. So currently, I employ 25 staff.
25 staff, wow. And tell us a bit about how lockdowns impacted your business. I mean, have you been able to open? Have you been...
Okay, I haven't been able to open. I'm too scared to go sit in prison, to be honest. My business, the challenges, the first thing is obviously the UIF. UIF hasn't been paid for my work. For lots of other employees that I know, they haven't gotten paid yet. I've got my business in all the years. I actually got audited during the lockdown, to be honest. I had to give a whole file for my last 4 years of each employee. I've done everything that the auditor requested. I still have back from them. The sad part is that obviously my staff, that some of them are sole breadwinners and they're waiting on money, and I try to give them what I can. Obviously, I can't give. There's no cash coming in, so limit to what I can give. And the very sad part is I even got accused by 2 people of literally if money, and I had to show pictures of this is all the orders that went off, this is all the payments that went off, this is your Excel file. I've done everything on my side. So obviously people's trying to find somebody to blame. So I have empathy for all those business owners because we've done everything by the book, and from here on out, it's out of our hands. So yeah.
So you're saying that no one's received the UIF payment there since the beginning of the crisis?
Wow. No one in my company, and I got a few other salon owner friends as well. They haven't received anything. And obviously, we're day 78 now.
Yeah.
So so that's one problem, the one challenge I'm facing. The second thing is obviously debit orders. At a company, you create different accounts at different places. I'd literally had to fight with a few companies just to get my debit orders to stop. How do I get charged for a service? My doors are closed, to be honest. So that's the next issue. Obviously, rental, and not only rental of business premises, but rental of housing. It's a constant battle between landlords and tenants, because obviously there hasn't been any fixed rate to say this is how it's going to be. So I think that's an issue that's pressing most people to be honest, because a lot of people don't know their rights regarding the rentals, regarding the land, regarding lockdown. So I think that's one of the most important issues. Whenever I tune into the television, I was hoping to hear something about rentals. Obviously, there's nothing said about that matter. And then when the whole lockdown started, there was all these things on TV about funding and this and that. I applied to every single name that they mentioned on television, and it's actually not funding, it's loan. So what they want to do is to take out a loan, pay my overhead, to pay my staff, and I can't take the money back from my staff. So I literally have to take a loan to look after everybody and be liable for everybody. I think it's totally unfair. I'm not the government. I'm not responsible for the people. We're in a pandemic. So how do I put myself into further debt than the debt that I am already in because of the lockdown? Yeah, because of these funding. People get funding and they think it's giving away money for free. It's funding, but you have to take it, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, let's just talk a little about the industry. I mean, you say you've been in it since 12 years old. So these industries is generally always already a very high hygiene protocol. And do you think you would be able to open and practice hygiene protocols that would allow you to open certain of your services safely?
I've got an extensive protocol in place, to be honest. I checked India recently opened up and I checked what they're doing. I can just run you a few of the things that I have. You come in by my store, your temperature will be checked. We'll sign in to say what treatment you're here for, whether you are out of the country. I do have the perspex up. All my staff will be wearing masks and visors. All the equipment is sanitized after each and every single client. We have gel sanitizers. So each person has a gel sanitizer which they use. So they're not giving it to somebody else. I don't understand that whole foot pedal thing, because if each person has their own gel sanitizer, use it, nobody else will be touching it. So anyway, each person has a gel sanitizer. We have throwaway towels. We have perspex up at the nail and beauty sections. And in our field, we studied ecology. We studied viruses, diseases, limiting it. What's the oxymoron in this whole thing is that besides the medical field, the hair and beauty, the tattoo industry, we dedicated a complete module to germs, to viruses, how to go about it. People might be thinking it's a new concept, germs and virus, but this is the line of work that we did, and we were prepared for it. And this is our life. So, yeah, we've been living with it all the time. We've been practicing the protocols. Obviously, it's more intensive now, but we literally have everything in place. And then I personally feel, to be honest, we're in level 3, certain places open. When you're going to limit a law in general application, they should have limited to all businesses and possibly say, you know what, this is a protocol that needs to be in place, because now we have businesses that's open on level 3. And I can attest to that. I've gone into many shops where they're not following the protocol. You get a little bit of sanitizer as you're walking in, and that's about it. So where's the justice, or where's the fairness in that? Make to limit it generally and provide a protocol for every business. And if you can abide by that protocol, by all means, open your doors and trade. The mask and the visors, I think the mask and the visors cancel out the social distancing, to be honest. That's why it's used in the medical fields. Once you have the mask visor and you're washing your hands, that basically cancels that out. Everybody about the germ that spreads when you cough and all of those things, but they are neglecting to say that if I'm touching on a bottle of shampoo in the store and I have COVID and the germ is from my mouth on my hands, I'm touching on that bottle. Another person comes, they pick up that same bottle, they're going to be getting COVID as well if they're going to put it into any article. So that totally negates the 1.5 distancing rule, to be honest. I don't know if that's in the way I feel about it. Yeah.
So let's just talk a little bit about your system. I mean, you already, I presume, operate on an appointment system. So you wouldn't necessarily have to have, lots of people in the shop at the same time. Although, you ask yourself, if 49 other people and you are allowed to gather for a religious or a traditional ceremony, why would it be different in a shop like yours? But as you say, you've got an appointment system already, so you can manage when people coming in and out.
We got an appointment system already, and then about the gathering of 50 people, I feel that does not make sense at all, to be honest, because I have a building that's only 30 square meters, and you're telling me 50 people. If you put that into the equation, everybody will probably be standing, I'm just saying roughly 0.015. So they should have actually said, like I said, the protocol, if you can follow the social distancing, if you want 5 meters, if you have these things in place, you will be allowed to open. Because saying something like, you could have 50 people in a room of 4 meters. So with my business regarding with the social distancing, obviously we're going to take a little bit of a knock because we have to space out the sections 1.5. We have sent the email and it's on our Facebook page as well, where only the client is allowed to come. They're not allowed to bring anybody. We will call the client when they're outside to let them know it's your time to come in so that we don't have an extra person in store at any time. The seating arrangements, we won't have anybody sitting because it'll be the therapist dealing with the client and the therapist will walk the client out to the door. So I've got I've got it all written up over here, but I think Amy will post my safety first, and we have taken all the necessary precautions we can. I checked what India was doing. I looked at what America was doing. We are totally on par. We put every single thing in place. When it comes to COVID-19 or Corona, in my personal opinion, it comes to your personal hygiene. If you are going to be washing your hands, wearing your mask, if you touch something, the other day was such a funny thing. Somebody dropped something for me and it was like I wanted to eat something, but I touched it and I had to wipe my hands before I eat it. I had to wipe my hands again and touch it again. So if you're going to practice personal hygiene, then you protect yourself. I've known many people that worked throughout lockdown without getting infected, and that's because they were OCD about their personal care. So by taking away our right to do something because we can't practice personal hygiene, I don't know, I'm just saying, if we all could practice hygiene, if we all could follow the protocols, there would be no need to have a lockdown if we could all follow those things.
Yeah. So I'm not only are you a young entrepreneur and businesswoman and professional in the beauty environment, but I'm told you're also studying for your LLB. So I'm sure you're following our legal case very, very quickly. And thank you for making time because you're in the middle of an exam as well, I believe. So you really are a woman of many, many talents and be able to multitask.
Thank you. 50 Shades. That's a joke.
Well, thank you very much, Sue Kelly, and we'll keep you posted on the fight, but you're exactly the sort of person that we're out there on the front line taking this case forward to open up the industry, to allow you to be able to ply your economic trade and to earn a living. So thank you for making time to be with us today. Helen, I'm very interesting that it's a young woman who's really been out in there and getting it done, etc.
I was fascinated. I learned an enormous amount, and she's really a go-getter. She's decided that she wants to do this. She started her own business. She's running it successfully, employing 25 people.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just no small thing to do. And now studying law. Well, good for her. Good luck.
Well, let's bring in Brian now. Brian Oosthuizen is the owner of Blokes, and Brian is sort of a very well-known personality here in Cape Town. Certainly anyone who knows Brian knows that he's a colourful character and somebody who wears his heart and his opinion on his sleeve. Brian, you want to tell us a little bit about how Blokes began and how business has been affected by this lockdown?
Hi, John. Thank you so much. We have been affected drastically in such a big way. We thankfully had vouchers that we were selling online where clients could obviously purchase a voucher and then just use it at a later stage. And that thankfully helped me to provide my staff with some of the vouchers that they had sold.
So, Brian, tell us about how Bloke started, what was the idea behind it, and how you've grown this business over the last couple of years.
So, Bloke started on the 5th of December, 2011, and it was a one-man show with just myself, one chair, and I still remember I had like a little diary at the bottom of the book where clients used to write in what times they would like to come. And since then, we've grown so much, and now I'm very thankful to have the most beautiful team and a lovely little shop in Greenpoint, Cape Town.
Great. Brian, what services do you provide and what products do you guys sell out there at your clients?
So we do a variety of services. We have our standard haircuts. We go over to skin fades. We do Brazilian hair straightening for men as well, and we even add in manicures. So there's so many services to choose from. Product-wise, we have anything from waxes to pastes to, you name it. Anything you can think of for a guy's hair, we've got it.
Great. And Sue Kelly was telling us that when you study hairdressing and you learn it, there's already meticulous hygiene practices that are applied in hair salons. And so they're primed to operate under stringent pandemic requirements. So how would you be looking at doing these adaptations, and what are these types of protocols that you have in place?
So Sue touched up on a number of things, and I'm glad that she did, because we have decided at the shop to rather keep the door closed, and we will then meet the clients outside. I think it's a lot safer for us as well, especially for the clients inside the shop. And that way we can control clients coming in and out. We also have control over social distancing, making sure that clients are sanitized before they come into the shop, and also a list of questions where they have been, do they feel fluish, all of the above.
What about how your salons are preparing to reopen?
Yes, John. So as I was saying, we are going to meet clients outside. We will definitely be sanitizing clients before they come in. And yeah, we look forward to that.
Well, on Coronacast, we don't talk the talk, we walk the walk. And so we're going to be going through today on the show some of the protocols that are going to be put in place for the cutting of hair under a level 3 lockdown. And I'm joined in the studio by Angela, who's going to be taking me through the procedures. So Brian, can you explain to me what Angela is doing differently to what you would normally do in a salon in terms of getting the hair cut here?
So yes, John, Angela has just sanitized your cape for you before she popped it on for you, and she's also done her hands. All of the equipment, all of the clippers, all the scissors, and everything Angela uses today will get sanitized as well, as per norm.
So Brian, is there a set of mandatory equipment that clients should expect a stylist to use when you are doing a cut that would enhance the safety protocols?
I mean, with clients and staff wearing masks, that's already a big safety protocol that we've put in place. But equipment-wise, combs, clips, all of those things that we might need at the shop, those things get sterilized after every single client, including the chairs and the capes.
So you already have a sterilizer that would kill any known germs or viruses on any of the equipment?
Yes, that's right. So in barbershops, hair salons, we use a formula called Barbicide, and that is extremely strong. You also get it in spray cans, and that's used for all of our equipment. So we just spray all of our equipment with alcohol in between and after every single service. So that we will definitely upkeep.
And Brian, is it possible to cut hair while someone's wearing a mask? Well, I think we're finding out now.
John, it's actually very easy. If the mask, like ribbon, just sits behind your ear, there's absolutely no problem to do the haircut as per norm. By just moving the mask slightly, you very easily get to that sideburn that you need.
How often should the stylist be sanitizing their hands then, Brian?
So, John, I think if Angela is just busy with you at the moment, and she obviously sanitized now before she started, I don't think there's any reason why she should keep on sanitizing. I think it's more important just to make sure that as you leave, for example, that's when we really sanitize your chair again. We get to your cape, and obviously all of the equipment that she has now used.
Yeah. And Brian, what should clients be doing to make the process easy? I mean, obviously, making sure they're booking appointments and not just pitching up as one thing, but what other things can clients do to make sure that they abide by the safety protocols?
So we've all spoken about it, and all of the staff chipped in with what they thought would be best for us, especially when we start opening up again. And I think it would be great if clients could just rock up with, say, dry, clean hair and preferably no products. Because then that makes it very easy for the stylist to just get the client in the chair. Everything has been sanitized and clean, and therefore we can start doing a dry cut very easily.
Brian, has government interacted with any of the industry bodies or consulted people in the industry before simply putting in place an arbitrary ban on being able to have your hair cut?
No, not at all, John. I mean, prior to the lockdown, these things that Angela are doing for you today, we already incorporated in our shop before the lockdown. We felt it was a lot safer and we wanted to be absolutely no risk. So we incorporated these things without any guidelines from government at all.
Yeah. Brian, I mean, internationally, have you been having a look at internationally what the other countries in the world have been doing?
Yes, like Sue have been saying, like all the basic protocols that have been put in place, I almost want to say, John, they've been there now, but they're just at a higher standard even more. So, for example, before the lockdown, if we didn't sanitize our hands every single 20, 30 minutes, now we're doing so. And yet, obviously, everyone is forced to wear a mask. So the industry has always been at the highest level of sanitizing, but now we've just taken it a level up and obviously just including social distancing, making sure that a client doesn't have the free will to walk around the shop as they feel like. We control that now.
And Brian, clients, while we talk about clients, let's talk about that. I mean, have you got clients phoning you saying we're desperate? I mean, I know I was starting to look like a bit of a werewolf, so I'm sure that many, many other of our citizens are starting to worry about the length of their hair, etc. And let's be completely honest, this is not something you can do from a YouTube clip, as the minister tried to tell South Africa.
You really, really can't. I mean, you can go as far and speak as correctly or, as possible. But what the person is doing on the other side is a whole different story. Yeah. And then it's very difficult to be able to fix that because you're not there,
So, Brian, I mean, there's a lot of hairdressers in South Africa. There's a lot of people in this industry. And the majority of them are small business owners. There's very few people involved in the industry that own massive chains, etc. That's not the norm. This is mainly individuals who are running their own businesses, have invested money in equipment, etc. This must be pretty devastating for them at this particular time.
John, it really is, because sadly enough, and I mean, I've trained many people in the last 8-9 years. Some of those people have started their own businesses and now sadly were forced to close. So it broke my heart to see that people that I respect in my industry, because I know how good they are, were now forced to close because they just couldn't trade.
And many of them are sole breadwinners. They're supporting families. They've got children. But there's also a whole value chain in the hairdressing industry. There's people who supply the products. There's people who supply the equipment. So this goes a lot further than just the hairdressers themselves.
It does, John. I have, been thinking about this for so long, and I wish that government would have thought more in depth about what to do and what not to do. If a small business has got a small amount of staff and everyone follows protocols and trades in a cautious and hygienic matter, then there should not be any reason for those companies not to trade.
Absolutely. I think that's been the point from the beginning, that your industry knows best how you can practice the safety, and we've seen today. I feel perfectly safe in having my hair cut in this way, and there's no reason why this couldn't be replicated in salons all over the country.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we, as you know, are in court now, and we're going to continue the fight on your guys' behalf, and hopefully we're going to be successful. I mean, I think it was very disrespectful that the minister didn't have the decency to file papers today, particularly on a matter that affects all of your lives and livelihoods on a daily basis. And but we're going to keep up the fight, Brian. And thank you very much for the work that you've been doing, to date on this.
Thank you so much, John, and I really appreciate everything you guys do for us as well.
Well, there you go, South Africa. That's about going to finish having my hair cut, but thank you very much for tuning in today and for watching Coronacast. As you've seen, it's perfectly safe for people to be able to, in the personal care industry, ply their trade, provide for their families, and to keep their businesses and their staff employed during this time by simply using social distancing, hygiene products that were in many instances the protocol already. That's all we've got time for this week. Don't forget to tune in next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Another action-packed episode of Coronacast, and I'll certainly will be having a much shorter look for that particular one because I'm going to finish getting my hair cut now. But I look forward to seeing you next week, Tuesday. Until then, stay safe, South Africa.